Hello there, I'm Chris Wade from People and Places Partnership. In this presentation today, I'm going to talk you through an example of how we can develop a forward framework for revitalising town centres. I'm going to use the example of Bungay, but the same approach can apply in work that we're doing across other towns in East Suffolk, and also work that we're doing more widely nationally. So maybe grab yourself a hot drink if you haven't done already. And I'm going to talk you through the different elements of how we create a forward framework for revitalising your town centre. Throughout the presentation, you'll see references to extra help and guidance that you can draw on should you want to, as footers in the footers at the bottom of key slides, or simply if you go to our website www.people-places.net. On the front page, you'll see a link to a blog that I've prepared to accompany the presentation. In doing this work, I'm going to draw on, as I say, the example that we've been working across the whole of East Suffolk with East Suffolk Council, and particularly drawing on the proactive work with Bungay Town Council and the Bungay Events and Business Association. The presentation draws on national guidance that we wrote for the Local Government Association that effectively gives you a recipe for the how and the what of revitalising town centres. And again, you can see the link in the footer to the presentation. Of course, at the current time, we can't talk about how we're planning for the future of our towns without also taking account of the current crisis that we're going through. At People and Places, we've prepared a blog and we keep that up to date, offering up-to-date guidance on how to respond to the crisis at the moment, and also having one eye on how it may change how towns operate in the future. There are three elements to what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how we gathered the evidence that we're using to define the issues that we want to address. And then I'm going to talk about this coming together, how we create a partnership, and in the example of Bungay, building on a good track record in partnership working in the town. And then lastly, I'm going to give a flavour of some of the action planning, how we put together that, some of the project ideas, and how we go about delivering solutions locally and having a greater strategic influence more widely. It's important to see how this forward framework process is put together based on evidence that we've gathered from the town. And that's evidence gathered by measuring 12 key performance indicators that we compare with other towns locally and nationally, and then importantly by engaging with key stakeholders, and those are the businesses in the town centres. We went into every business in Bungay in this example, and 61% of them gave us their views, and then surveying people on the street who are regularly using the town, and then more widely online. We also added questions about digital development in terms of skills and infrastructure needs. All of this information is available as detailed reports from the website linked below. East Suffolk means business. And within the reports themselves, importantly, we're able to include comparisons to neighbouring towns, which helps people benchmark locally and also points to opportunities for collaboration from learning from other places. So one of the first indicators is business confidence, gleaned from those visits to town centre businesses. And we can see in this example in Bungay, looking to the future, that 25% of the businesses are concerned about their future and see that turnover will continue to decline. Business were also very positive about the town. Here we see the list of likes that businesses have about being based within Bungay in this example, and you can see the physical appearance, the potential of local customers and tourist customers, that leisure offer, whether it be daytime, evening or weekends, those cafe, pubs and restaurants, and that track record of putting on events and activities. They're all amongst the things that businesses really value about the town and that we might want to look to build on. When we look at businesses' future priorities for the town centre, in this case in the Bungay example, we see some particular issues begin to crystallise, and those issues are a loss of banking services, including the lack of a 24-hour cash machine, the availability of parking and how it's managed, and to a lesser extent, the need to boost the retail offer are things that are concerning businesses. Our survey also gives us information about how people are using the town centre. And we just look at these two pieces of data on the slide. We can see that we glean information about why people are coming into the town, and we see that they're coming in mostly for convenience or everyday shopping. They're also coming in, though, to access services and for leisure. If we look at the duration of the visits, at the moment, we can see that most people are in the town for relatively short amounts of time. And that gives us useful information in terms of how we might want to adjust parking tariffs to suit those needs, but also how we might look to encourage people to stay longer, to spend more money, to get more out of the town. We also gauged people's perceptions about the town, which is really important to know. And as you can see, this slide from Bungay is quite mixed, split opinions. We get good comments like pretty, quaint, friendly, historic, interesting, charming. We also get some negative words like rubbish, dilapidated, declining, adequate, things that if we resurveyed this town in 2 years' time, we'd want to see changing. We'd want to see more of the positives. We also got to see what customers like about the town centre, and as you can see, they value ease of walking around it, they value the customer service, the convenience, those independent shops that are doubtlessly providing that customer service, and then other factors, not just retail, those health services that bring them into the town and that they really value. And we can see that cafes and restaurants are also part of the town's attraction. When we asked customers to give us their priorities for improving the town centre, we saw the same sets of issues, but in a different order. So improving the retail mix was important to customers. And again, we see banking and banking services as prominent, as well as a recognition to improve parking availability and the way parking is managed. This slide looks at one of the town centre metrics in more detail, in this case parking availability, and you can see quickly looking at this slide that the grey bars for Bungay show that parking availability in the town centre is less than we would expect compared to those orange bars which are typical of towns nationally. So that backs up what we saw from businesses and customers' priorities, that changing the way the car parking is managed is a priority. This slide gives us an insight into the priority that businesses gave to digital development. And what we can see is that businesses give a highest priority in the first instance to improving the digital infrastructure. And then when that digital infrastructure has been improved, they then look to move on to give priority to developing their digital skills and services. And we can see that the first of those skills that they're looking to improve is to improve activity, presence and performance on social media. Here we look at how we can compare survey findings across neighbouring towns in East Suffolk. In this instance, we can see that customers' changing experience has worsened much more in Bungay compared to its neighbouring towns, and it's important to understand this and look to change it. Now we're going to look a little bit at how we can bring organisations together to create a partnership to revitalise our town centres, the so-called HOW of town centre revitalisation. Again, here we reference useful follow-up information that you can look at on our website, in this case about creating a forward framework which covers the how and the what of town centre revitalisation, using Bungay as an example. Building a town team or partnership is something it's important to work at. Here we set out some of the stages from gathering the evidence to involving key groups, businesses and organisations. As ever, we set out background information that gives more detail in the footnote. In this case, the online toolkit that accompanies the guidance that we wrote for the Local Government Association. There are many ways for a local town team or partnership to get organised. From the informal, such as a loose partnership perhaps hosted by the town council, to much more formal systems such as business improvement districts that we find in Lowestoft and that is emerging in Felixstowe at the moment. There are no wrongs and right for each town, but it is important to consider the fit. And again, we reference more information as part of the Revitalising Town Centres toolkit, which we provided for the Local Government Association. Here we look at another comparison between East Suffolk towns. In this sense, we see how the track record in Bungay of organising events, carrying out existing marketing activity, and already working informally in partnership is viewed very positively by businesses and gives us something to build on. The way in which issues can be clustered together within a town and then dealt with perhaps by separate working groups also has to be determined on a town-by-town basis. Here, looking at Bungay, we can find that there are two key groups. One, looking at physical change around planning, property and parking, and then the other, marketing the current assets of the town and perhaps communicating the process using digital media and traditional methods such as events to draw people into the town. Key within this always, though, is the central coordination and communication. Coordinating the activity between different organisations and these different groups, communicating internally so that people are not falling over each other and they're rowing in the same direction, and then communicating to businesses, to groups and the wider community to involve them and to show progress. We finish off now by giving a sense of how we can turn around a town, and that's by putting in the planning to create an action plan, which is the second part of our forward framework, and how this focuses on delivery and also on how things can be achieved through strategic influence. An example of a forward framework that has driven how a town partnership comes together and also the action plan that is delivered locally is seen in work that we've previously undertaken in East Suffolk in Southwold. And again, there's a link in the presentation to more information about this. It's important that an action plan to revitalise a town centre, the plan that lists the projects, the initiatives, the strategic influence, it's important this constantly references back to the issues and that we're looking for next steps, outcomes and measures of success that we can track back to those issues, and so that when we resurvey the town in 2 years' time, we can demonstrate progress, demonstrate achievement. The next two slides set out two sets of these issues grouped together. The first one, around getting around town, we looks at what is the evidence, what are the things that we're looking to change around parking and around town centre traffic. This second example we have of a grouping of issues shows the evidence that we have that has driven the Business Association, driven the Town Council, working with East Suffolk Council and ourselves to look at how we can boost the brand, market the town better, build on that existing track record to help revitalise the town centre. To help provide inspiration for the action planning process in individual towns, we put together a video of all the great work and partnerships that exist within neighbouring towns across East Suffolk. Again, the link to this resource can be found in the footer of this slide. The proposals and priorities in an individual town action plan will of course be distinctive to that town. However, we think there's merits in sharing the way the process has come together in a town like Bungay as an example that other towns may want to look to and learn from. In Bungay, what we saw is the Town Council and the Business Association working on proposals separately and then through us blending them together into a town-wide action plan. This has been then added to by links into wider district work being led by East Suffolk Council, looking at things like smart towns, that's digital infrastructure and services, and the parking review to ensure that the benefits are maximised at a local level. We finish by showing you a town's checklist, a clipboard that figuratively or even in reality, town partnership should look to get out every 3 to 6 months to show the progress in the how and the what of revitalising the town centre. And again, this process draws on the resources available through the Local Government Association. We hope this presentation, using Bungay as an example of how you create a forward framework, has been useful in taking through those stages of getting stakeholders organised, of developing an action plan, and then following through on delivery. If we can work with other towns across East Suffolk and more widely to do this, we will not only be able to bounce back, hopefully when the current crisis is over, but put our towns on a much firmer long-term footing to ensure that they continue to play a vital role as community and economic hubs. Thank you for your time.